Welcome to the Construction Disruption Podcast, where we uncover the future of design, building, and remodeling.
I'm Todd Miller of Isaiah Industries, manufacturer of specialty metal roofing and other building materials. Today, my co-host here on Construction Disruption is Mr. Ryan Bell. How are you today, Ryan?
Hey, Todd. I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing well also. So I got a couple of questions for you.
Okay.
If I may, one of them is, what do you call a flying monkey?
I don't know.
A hot air baboon. Okay. Well, I'm stuck on monkeys today. Next episode, it may be sloths. Watch out. But that'll take a while, though. So what do you call a very angry monkey?
I feel like I should be able to get this. I don't know. I'm not going to spend too much time thinking about it.
Furious George.
Oh, those are both really good. Those are good.
Well, good deal. Well, anyway, are we good to go now?
Yes. Let's dive in. I'm excited for this episode.
Me too. So today we're thrilled to introduce as our guest Shawn Feurer, a transformative force known as the Universal Mindset Disruptor. With a unique blend of financial planning expertise and mindset coaching, Shawn empowers professionals to unlock wealth, happiness, and resilience. Shawn's work has inspired leaders across industries to break through mental and financial barriers, making him a perfect fit for our audience of construction trailblazers. Whether you're maybe find yourself navigating sort of a volatile business climate, or maybe you're seeking to grow and innovate in your business, I think you're going to find that Shawn's insights promise to challenge you and yet also elevate your approach. So let's dive in. Shawn, welcome to Construction Disruption. It's a real pleasure to have you as our guest today.
Todd, Ryan, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here and excited to have a powerful conversation about mindset and how we can get people living their best life using the processes they already have in place.
Well, I'm certainly incredibly intrigued to see what I can learn, because I realize that even though I've been at this business game for 45 years, sometimes my mindset sucks, and I realize I'm holding myself back. So our last episode, we had talked with Charlie Gindell from Southern California, and Charlie had brought your name up as saying that you were someone who had been a real strong influence on his life. And you and I have been connected on LinkedIn, I think, for years and years and years. But I was like, okay, I need to get Shawn on the show. So we're glad to have you. So let's kind of tell us a little bit about your past. I don't want to spend too much time on it, but I know you got your start working with a home exteriors company, and then you were a coach and even, I think, the head coach for CCN, Certified Contractors Network, kind of bringing you to where you are today. So tell us a little bit about that story.
All right. Yeah, happy to. And I have to say, you had me squirming in my seat here a little bit. I thought you were going to ask me some monkey jokes or something.
None of that.
Definitely can talk a little bit about my story. And, it's interesting. I met my stepdad that raised me when I was 6 years old, and he was a siding contractor, you guys. And, I never heard of home improvements, didn't know anything about the exteriors business, and had this amazing man come into my life and literally grew up in the industry. So as soon as I was old enough that he could put me to work in the warehouse, I was unloading trucks, sweeping the shop, and literally spent, my teenage years in high school and going to college, working in our home improvement business. And it's so funny because my plan was not to be in the home improvement industry. My stepdad, he dropped out of college when he met my mom, and me and my little sister, and he dropped out of school, and his only requirement was I go to college. He had a 4.0 average. He was a great student, and he dropped out to provide for us. And so going to college, thinking I'm going into corporate, going to get a business degree, and I fell in love with this business. I really did. I hate to say I was learning more in the home improvement industry than I was at college, but I really was. Real world situations, and I did go on to get my degree, but never left the business. Just transitioned in and started working. And so my background in home improvements is I've worked in every seat in the home improvement company. Richard Kaler, the founder of CCN, who I was a part of later in my life, he talked about the three-legged stool in construction: production, admin, and administration. And I've worked in every leg. I've been an installer. I've, been in the office. I've been an in-home sales professional, and I've worked my way up. And as my dad's original partner sold out, I bought in and owned the company with my dad for quite a few years. So listeners, I've been in the trenches with you. I know the challenges. A saying I have is the most well-run home improvement companies that I know, they're just organized chaos. We're dealing with old homes, human beings, and weather. And no matter how good your systems are, you get cells cranking, and now all of a sudden you've overwhelmed production, and then something goes wrong in admin. And so, for me, and we'll talk a little bit more about how I got to mindset, but it's a challenging business. Lots of opportunity, huge impact in home values and the life we provide for our employees and teammates. But yeah, that was kind of my story into home improvements. After spending almost 20 years in the business, owning the business with my dad, I ran into some challenges. About 2008, when a lot of us in the industry ran into some challenges in the business, I was dealing with business challenges. I was dealing with some challenges in my personal relationships, and my beautiful mother was starting the process of leaving us from early onset Alzheimer's. So, through that transition, I ended up walking away from the family business, ended up going through a divorce. And through all this process, I didn't know anything else. I had a business degree, but I'm literally a lifer in the home improvement industry. So as I was searching for something else, I've been a 10-year member of the Certified Contractors Network, best practices, did my best to implement them in my business. And the owner, Scott Siegel, reached out to me and said, "Hey, Shawn, I hear you're looking for something. You've got a lot of success in our industry. You've got a lot of experience with our processes," and offered me a job as a coach. And it was interesting because I hadn't been an employee in a very long time. And I was a little bit hesitant. And again, I was going through these personal challenges at the time. And so I honestly took the job as I'm going to do this until I see what's next. And besides loving the home improvement industry, that's when I found that I just love helping people, because I hopped in. It was interesting. I got to work remote. So they're based out of Baltimore area. I'm in Utah. They shipped me a voice over IP phone, a member list, and said, "Start calling people, Shawn. Start seeing what you can drum up to help people." And again, I was doubting myself at the time. I'd had challenges in my business. I had, who am I to be helping these people? And I started getting on the phones, and oh my gosh, every question I was asked, I had an answer to. I dealt with it personally, or somebody, in my network or my organization had. And so I just started going to work helping people, and ended up, this was from like 2014 to 2019, I was the lead sales trainer for certified contractors. I was a head business coach. At one time, I had 70 companies that I was working with, and really fell in love with it. Now, the challenge that I found in it was CCN has best practices. If you want to learn how to run your production department, they've got systems in place that will help you do it. If you want to improve your sales, they've got a proven sales process that if you follow the steps, you'll get better results. They've got the business planning that Charlie Gindell introduced to the organization. I went through myself back in 2023. It's one of the best ways for a business owner to plan a budget month by month, breaking down everything. Here's where the problem came up, and here's where I got frustrated. These people are paying money for membership. They're getting the information, and they're not getting the results. They're not getting the results. And so when I ended up leaving CCN, I was on a mission for myself and for the people I had been working with of what's going on, and it's something I now call the knowing doing gap. We know what we need to do. Why aren't we doing it? Why is there an implementation gap? And what I found on my journey was its mindset. It's the belief system of the individuals that we're plugging into the system. So hopefully that's what you wanted from me. That's a little bit of my background through the industry, through coaching process, and then shifting over to today. All I coach is mindset. I literally teach people how to train themselves to think better thoughts so they can better implement the information they already have to get better results, and not just in business, but in every area of life.
Wow. Well, that's quite a story of, your migration from in the trenches into coaching and now what you're doing today. So I do have to ask you, so was it in Salt Lake City or Utah where you were doing home improvement years ago?
Yes, we were. My dad and his partner founded it in 1971. It was a siding, window, and roofing company. Yeah. Okay. Glorious. I mean, again, I love the business, love the impact we had, the money we're able to make in the industry. But yeah.
Do you remember a guy by the name of Hal Scott with Norandex? Does that ring a bell at all?
Yes.
Okay. I used to work with Hal a lot. We sold a number of metal roofs in Salt Lake City together. So.
Okay. Yeah. No, we originally were a big Reynolds
Okay,
aluminum
sure.
siding, right? And then when Randex Reynolds merged together, whenever that happened, we were the number one producer for Reynolds back in the day, and we moved over to Randex and spent quite a bit of time working with those guys.
Good on you. That's great.
Yeah.
So today you call yourself a mindset disruptor. Tell us about that. What do you do? Is that a phrase you came up with on your own, or have other people used that as well? And how do you work with your clients to help really transform their lives for abundance and freedom? I think are two of the words you use.
Yes. Well, and it's interesting because I actually went on a journey looking for a program to help people with behavior. I knew there was something going on in people's mindset that was creating the behavior that was blocking them from doing that. And so I actually found a gentleman by the name of Bob Proctor. I don't know if either of you are familiar with Bob Proctor. He passed away a couple of years ago. He was in his 80s when I met him. He was one of the best success coaches in the industry, from Canada, worldwide, global impact. And he's where I got this information. But the way he talks about the mind is a little deeper than most people are aware of. And so as I brought this to our industry, I got a lot of resistance. People thought I was a new age coach. I got called woo-woo, like Shawn's bringing some bullshit. Like we need practical application. And so as part of that process, I was working with a marketing guy and he said, Shawn, you need an expert title. You need an expert title. You can't call yourself just a mindset coach. We need something more specific. And we went through this whole process, and he's the one that came up with the Universal Mindset Disruptor. And I'm going to be honest, talking about mindset, I thought it was cheesy. I'm like, bro, I'm not gonna call myself. And he said, you're the mindset coach. Don't you have some affirmation or something you can do? And so I started affirming, I am the Universal Mindset Disruptor. And I just started saying it as part of my daily affirmations. And it's so crazy. Like all things in mindset, you start building it inside of you. I started doing calls with my clients and check-ins, and I started hearing the word, Shawn, thank you so much for disrupting my thoughts. Like it literally became a reality. So yeah, I did with the marketing. I came up with the term and fully embraced it. And now the work I do is I help people disrupt pattern program thoughts so they can think new ones to get new and better results.
Very good. Well, as you talk about this, and of course, I'm pretty old school and older than you, but, I go back to Norman Vincent Peale and the power of positive thinking and, what that impact that has on self-image. Tell us a little bit more about, self-image and positive affirmation and that type of thing and the impact that you see it have on people.
Yeah, no. And going back, Bob Proctor, my mentor, one of the many mentors that I used to get really good at the mindset, his book was Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. And to me, that is the original mindset book. And it's crazy because it was written in the 1930s and now almost 100 years later, the principles he talks about, there wasn't a lot of science to back the power of autosuggestion and how much of the subconscious mind, but it's fact. And so that's everything in and I created a program. It's a digital 12 modules program to help people better understand the mind, the power of autosuggestion. And it's great that you brought up self-image because one of our modules is all about the self-image. And it's going back to, we don't attract what we want, we attract who we are. And I've worked with so many contractors that are kind of stuck at the $3 to $5 million gross revenue mark, and they're trying to get to 10. And they've got the processes, they've got all the information, and part of the work is the image. Like, what type of person would you have to be today to create that growth in your company? And again, the program and modules we have help people find that.
One of the things I talk a lot about is the importance, in business for any leader to be very introspective and, be able to really look at themselves. So how does someone determine if they have some work to do in terms of mindset, or you just think everyone does? I mean, how do you figure that out for yourself?
Yeah, and that's an interesting journey. And one of the hardest things I have about getting people into the program is how do you know if you need help there? And I love that you use the word awareness, because it is, for me, it's all about self-awareness. The more aware of my thoughts, my feelings, and how they affect my actions, that's how I can control my results. And so I do help people from the very beginning just with awareness. And one of the starting points, everything we do in mindset, each one of my clients gets to pick what they want. They get to set their goals. They get to work on it. But we do it in a format that we focus on what I call the power trifecta. Better finances, better health and wellness, both mental and physical, and better relationship with self so we can build better relationships. And so as I'm meeting with somebody and talking about this, I'll usually just have people rate themselves on a scale of 1 to 10. How are your finances? How is your health and wellness? And it's interesting because there's always a gap there. Hardly ever have I had anybody give me a 10. So they give me a couple ratings and then we just start diving into it. And again, go a little deeper on it. The first question I ask is, why is that a 10? Why is that a 10? And that's the first dive into this, is you have a lot of people that are rating themselves a 7 out of 10, with the 10 being a limited number for them, a programmed set point that for whatever reason their belief system supports. So that's kind of where we start looking for blind spots, is just trying to get people thinking bigger thoughts so they can get better results.
Interesting. I remember years ago, I'm sitting at breakfast with a couple of mentors of mine, and they started talking a lot about wholeness and, this idea of what it meant to be a whole person. And, I knew what they were talking about. I mean, I was engaged in the conversation, but I did look at them. I said, what do you mean by wholeness? Just because I wanted to see how they responded. And honestly, they both kind of stuttered a lot when I asked that. But, I love what you're saying, though, this idea of finances, health and wellness and relationships and, trying to be whole and complete in all those areas. Do you find that some people are some of us really good at one or two of those and we suck at the other one or two? Or do we usually suck at all of them?
You usually, and it's interesting, and it was, I guess it was an intuitive thought, because when I came up with this idea of the power trifecta, I put money at the top of the triangle. But that's where most people's focus is, especially in business. Right? And so what I do find is most people have a pretty lopsided, tall, skinny triangle where even if the money's not where they want it to be, it's where most of their focus is. And if you think about it, if I'm neglecting my health and wellness and I'm neglecting my relationship with self, what suffers? And a lot of the small business owners, especially that I work with, their family's sacrificing time, their health and wellness is sacrificing because they're so busy and stressed out, they're not eating healthy. So I do find a lot of people, the focus has been, and that's the first awareness, is getting to spread that around and put some intention. And it's crazy because I've seen people work on the base. You get in better shape, you start feeling better about yourself, you start loving yourself more, whether it's a sales rep or an owner or a high level leader. When those two legs increase and we raise the score and we raise the set point, the money always ends up following it.
Interesting.
Yeah. And one thing just for listeners to think about, we're programmed from birth to work outside in, to respond to the outside world. As a small child, you go outside, it's cold, you're responding to the cold and you're going to put a coat on, right? Or go inside and grab something. And everything we hear on the outside, we're told. So we learn to be reactive on the outside. And it's interesting because when you get into a deep level mindset, some of the people that aren't getting the results, they're taking the action on the outside. They're going to work every day. They're running sales appointments. They're doing the work. And kind of this idea of wholeness. If you're doing the work on the outside, but you're not doing any work introspectively on the inside, even if you have success, you end up with hollow success. I kind of make the joke of the trust fund kid crying in his Lamborghini, right? The money's not a problem, but the purpose and the sense of what's going on the inside. And so everything we do in mindset and my program Inner Blueprint is focusing on you. When you think of the trifecta, I will tell people that when you look at your money, you look at your health and wellness, and you look at your relationships, they're all mirrors of you. And, if I'm wearing a black shirt today, if I brushed my teeth this morning, if I spilled white toothpaste on my shirt, would I rub the mirror to try to change it? Or would I change the shirt? I'd change the shirt, right?
Right.
That's kind of this awareness and introspect, is so many people are so busy taking the action that we're programmed from birth to do to fix their money. That's rubbing a mirror.
Right.
Taking more action without the right belief. And so everything that we do starts with you. Starts with, what are you thinking about this situation? What's a program pattern belief in this situation? And how would thinking something different and opening your mind and expanding it help you from the inside out create a better result in your life?
I think it's kind of interesting. You had said, your personal story, 2008, 2009 was kind of a critical period where, a lot of stuff just kind of fell apart. And that was the world back then. Hard to imagine, but there's probably a lot of people listening who don't recall 2008, 2009 because they were too young. But, do you find that, we go through those times and, I think we're we're in one of them right now. I mean, there's just a lot of uncertainty, a lot of high stress. Margins sometimes might be tight on certain projects. Of course, for several years in construction, we've talked about the tight labor market. Not quite sure where I'm going with this, but do you find that, those times of stress in one of those areas just kind of weighs on everything for folks?
It weighs on things, and it actually triggers what's inside of people. And, going a little bit deeper into the mindset, my mentor, Bob Proctor, would always talk about, as a newborn child in my mom's arms, I was perfect, right? I didn't know what to believe about money. I didn't know what food to eat. I didn't know. And that all got programmed into me. Well, so did a bunch of other things. Like my biological father left, me and my mom were on welfare. That's a scarcity. And the way we get programmed, any belief, is really simple. One of two ways: hearing something over and over until it becomes a belief, or an emotional event. And so you take somebody like me that already had some scarcity by emotional events as a child programmed into me, got to a point where I was really good. When 08 hit, that triggered inside of me some programming that went all the way back to childhood. So we do see that. And that's one of the big things I work. We call it scarcity mindset. Every single person has some level of scarcity, whether it be not enough time, not enough money, or sometimes it's lacking self, not enough of me. I'm not enough. I've done everything I can and it's still not enough. And so that's really what we work on. And it was interesting because I didn't have this material when I went through 08 and I got my ass kicked. It triggered that scarcity and I went into defense mode and didn't do a very good job. I started coaching this material in February 2020, just coming out of my scarcity mindset. And I had 10 contractors in my first group and they all wanted to cancel at some level. COVID hits, everyone's freaking out. And I had to dig deep first for myself and say, Shawn, this isn't 08. This isn't something from your childhood. This is an unknown, a new situation. You're different. Your business is different. Your finance. But that had to be like a logical, not emotional conversation. And then with my clients, calling them up and saying, hey, maybe this is an opportunity. And it's funny because I didn't have a crystal ball, but as anybody in the industry knows, COVID was actually, as challenging as it was in so many areas of life, it was great for the home improvement industry. And my group of contractors that started with me, almost all of them are still with me today, and they thrived. They had, a couple of the best years, but it was, like you said, taking this event that triggers people and looking inside and saying, what's my trigger here? And then asking myself, is that true or real? And most of the time it's not. Mm-hmm. I mean, one of the interesting things about the human mind, and again, I don't want to go too deep, but everything I teach is based on science, but the human mind has not evolved. In thousands of years of existence, our human mind today is very similar to prehistoric mind, right? And the one thing that has not changed at all is the fight or flight. And it's always, the mind's job is two things: keep you efficient and keep you alive, keep you safe. And so if you think about it, without us thinking about it, I just said think about it, but we're not thinking about it, that thing chirps. A challenging event hits. It's chirping saying, get ready to fight or flight something here. An analogy I use, I drive an SUV, Todd, and it has a warning system. And every morning when I back out of my garage to take my daughter to school, it beeps at me. I let it beep because to me, it's my little reminder that my mind is going to do that to me all day, every day. And instead of letting it trigger me, I thank it for the warning. And again, this is all about awareness, right? In the moment, it's harder to do. Something happens and you're seeing red and pissed off. It's that pause saying, okay, thanks for triggering something inside of me. Is there real danger here? And again, the world we live in, most of us aren't in real danger any of the time, but we still respond with that old mind of fight or flight. My business owners I work with, they get a text message from an installer that feels like a tiger attack, right? The difference is they're sitting in their truck and they're locking that stress in them and like, this is the awareness. If I got to do something with this, maybe I got to get outside and walk around for a few minutes, take some breath, process it. And then instead of reacting and freaking out, I can respond from a more powerful position.
Yeah, I love that. Respond from a more powerful position. So, I touched on it earlier. I mean, one of the big topics in construction for a number of years has been the labor shortage. And of course, it's impacted about every industry at this point. But how does that business leaders or managers or owners, whatever your position may be, how does their mindset affect their ability to attract, to retain, to train a good team?
And it goes back, and again, I mean, it's a whole process, a whole program, but it's really doing some work with awareness and even some reprogramming And one of the big phrases, it's kind of a catchphrase in my mastermind groups that I coach on this mindset, is everything in life is always happening for me, not to me. And so when we take that mentality, labor shortage, guys that are stuck in this happening to me and somewhat of scarcity, they're stuck in not finding solutions and just this is what we have to deal with. And they spend too much time just dealing with the problem, where somebody who's done some work on themselves and they're saying, okay, this is a situation. It's not good. It's not bad. It just is. How do I make it better? They're more proactive in trying some different things, going to trade schools, looking for other ways to attract people to the industry. And it's, same thing, recently, a couple of my, top companies, record years last year, they lost some top people. One had a sales leader and his son, responsible for over $3 million in revenue in the company, just leave to go start their own company. We actually just recorded an episode of my podcast with him because he said 3 years ago, before the mindset work, he'd be freaking out right now. He'd be pissed off. He'd be in negativity. And he's literally, obviously not happy about it, but he's already looking, okay, what's our next? And, anybody who's ever lost a key person, it hurts. And then usually you find somebody and something that works out better. But it's the awareness to grab that energy now instead of suffering misery for 6 months while you power through it. And again, that's the difference. It's going back to, I can't control other people. I can't control other events. The only thing I control is my thoughts and my feelings. And the better job I do of managing that on a daily basis, and this even goes back to the wholeness. I'm able to create more peace, presence, and daily happiness by just having, and I do have, and we can talk about, I recommend a daily mindset ritual for everybody. Anybody that works with me, it's 30 minutes a day. It's 15 minutes of good material. If you're in my program, you listen to my material. If not, find something on the mind, whether it be Joe Dispenza, Bob Proctor, Bruce Lipton, just something about understanding the mind. 15 minutes a day, 5 minutes of focus on your goal, 5 minutes of affirmation statements, creating the version of you want to bring, and then 5 minutes on gratitude. And gratitude is like the superpower in mindset and in creating things you want in your life. You can't get anything until you're grateful for what you already have.
Wow. Yeah, that right there was worth the time of anyone's been listening to this episode. So thank you.
Yeah, well, if I can add to that, free takeaway, go to YouTube and type in Brother David, A Grateful Day. It's a 5-minute meditation. I listened to it every day for 5 years, starting when I was going through my most challenging times. And, we want to be grateful. We try to be grateful. Well, just like anything, I programmed that into my mind every single day for years. I go to gratitude. A challenge comes up, gratitude. A celebration comes up, gratitude. And again, I've made it automatic by the programming.
I'm glad you kind of mentioned that. Maybe watching that will help answer my question. But, I've always struggled with the gratitude part of that. I've had journals where I write what I'm thankful for, or grateful for, but it's always felt very surface level to me. Does that video kind of maybe go a little deeper into that?
Yes.
Okay.
And again, and I'll do a plug. So I listened to A Grateful Day for almost 5 years. And then earlier this year, I released my own. So you can also find A New Day by Shawn Feurer on YouTube. It's a little bit longer, but it's the same energy. I kind of made it. Brother David's is a little slower. Mine's a little higher pace. So if you listen to it in the morning, mine's going to give you more energy. But let me just share the premise, Ryan, because it does help with it. Because Brother David, he's an Austrian monk. His practice on gratitude is that today is a gift. Not everybody woke up this morning. And so if you approach every day with today's a gift, and I've kind of rabbit holed from listening to him, but what if yesterday I wasn't living in this life? And even if I'm not in a good situation, which I wasn't, I was living in my sister's basement, starting my consulting business, right? I was waking up saying I was grateful. I'm like, I'm not grateful for this shit. I lost my big house. I'm single again, right? But going to someone, and if you don't have a situation, somebody else. I mean, there are kids on this planet that don't have drinkable water. And so that's how he creates a presence is wake up today and what do you have? When I go back to my challenging times now, I wake up now in a beautiful home with my new wife, my bonus daughters, a successful business. I still remember what it feels like to be broke, sick, and all alone. So this morning, as I'm doing Brother David's A Grateful Day, what if yesterday I was living in my sister's basement and I woke up in this life? I would have sincere gratitude. I'd be happy for the faucet with drinkable water. I'd be happy for the sun rising. And it's just really bringing presence that today is a gift. And, my New Day meditation that I created it's a brand new day. Today's May 21st, 2025. Nobody's experienced today. And the energy of opening a Christmas present, it's brand new. I've never had this before. So that's the first pillar. And then the second pillar is tomorrow is not promised. I don't know that I'm going to wake up tomorrow. There are people that didn't wake up today. And so with Brother David's 5 minutes, it just gives you real presence to today's a new day. It's your first day, and it could also be your last. And no matter what I'm dealing with, if I start every day in just that presence, being grateful for the little things and bring that into the day, it helps me handle all the challenges. Because again, for the most part, most of us, the challenges we deal with aren't real challenges compared, in my work, I've guided some people through. I had one of my long-term clients lose his wife of 42 years last fall, 3 minutes from their house. And you want to talk about a challenging situation for an individual and hard to find gratitude. And, actually he called me yesterday because he's still walking through the aftermath of that. But I've watched him with this daily presence on gratitude, with the mindset. He's 62 years old and he's like, Shawn, this is hard. I'm grieving, but I'm 62 years old. I got to build my next 20 years. I've got to find something. And he's kind of using his wife's passing to try to create a foundation and create some motivation as he builds his next. But I don't know if that answered it to you, but that's how I take it from a surface level. Oh, I'm grateful for this and I'm grateful for this. It's like, no, go a level deeper and be like, I am really grateful because not everybody has what I have. And even when we're not where we want to be, 95% of our population in the United States lives better than most of the world, right? Putting that in perspective. And that's where it takes for me, an Austrian monk, to put that, because I haven't experienced. I grew up in Utah, right? I've always had drinkable water. I don't know what it's like to be thirsty all the time.
Right. Awesome. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Good stuff. We'll make sure we get some notes or links to those things in the show notes as well. Well, tell us a little bit about your podcast. I know that's you're impacting a lot of lives there. Tell us what you're doing through that.
Yeah, so it's called The Inner Blueprint. That's the name of my mindset program. That's the name of our podcast. And every episode, it's my focus is in the home improvement industry, but I always say with my ripple effect, I want to help more people. But we have a lot of guests in the industry. Charlie Gandell, who was on your guys' show, he was on my show. And, a lot of the guests are in my program and they're sharing their journey, and it is interesting. This isn't a knock on business process, but I've worked with a lot of CCN members that had the best processes for 10 years, for 15 years, and they were just stuck. We get a better mindset, that same system, same process, all of a sudden starts skyrocketing. So a lot of the guests I have on are people that are talking about, the wins. I have a couple of brothers in Chicago that 70-year-old family roofing business. I met him in 2014 when I was working for CCN. They've been with me for almost a decade. And through mindset work, through using best practices, they're probably on pace to do 25 million this year after 70 years of 3 to 5 million. And it took some time, but it was adding this piece of mindset to all the good process. And again, I take this much credit for what they've done. These brothers have worked their asses off. They've innovated, they've changed product lines, but they have some of the best mindset of anybody I've ever worked with. And it's because they've been aware and intentional on it.
Tell us what your relationship looks like with your clients. What does that look like for someone to engage you and start to use your coaching?
Yeah, so the way we've set it up, it is a group coaching program. I don't have a bunch of employees. I am the mindset coach. And so I have my core group is a men's group with business owners in the home improvement industry. So if somebody reaches out and they want to join, and I do have a women's group. The women's group is a little bit more mixed. We've got a lot of different positions in the home improvement industry. But if they reach out to me, we do a discovery call. I do offer a free behavioral analysis, which is kind of like a disc and motivators. Start the conversation, give them some value. But if they like it, we invite them to join the mastermind. They become a member of the group and they get access to the 12 modules of Inner Blueprint. And then the 12 modules, we go through them 3 times a year. We have a weekly call where we work on the lesson. We have a second call a week that's a bonus call for networking and supporting each other. And, again, I have guys that have been getting on this same call for almost 5 years since we started the program in 2020. And it's interesting, some people are like, I'm going to listen to the same material. I'm going to do the same work. The material doesn't change, but you do. And so every time you're into a round doing the work and the modules are very specific. I don't know if you guys are familiar with EOS, but we are an EOS company and we do have our proven process in running the business. We've got our proven process with this program. And modules 1 through 8, Module 1 is what do you want? Not what do you think you can have, but what do you really want? Getting people to stretch. And then we go step by step, working on the paradigms, the programs, the self-image, the fears that come up, to Module 8, which is what do you believe? And we're trying to take people from something they really want, have no idea how they're going to do it, to believing it's possible. So that's kind of what the program looks like.
Well, we'll ask you for this again later, but since we've touched on it, how can folks best engage with you?
Probably the best way to get a hold of me is go to my website and just fill out a contact form. It's ShawnFeurer.com. They can also send me an email. It's coach@ShawnFeurer.com, and it's ShawnFeurer.com. But again, I love helping people. I can't sell this material. So I don't, I'm a sales trainer. I know how to close in the house, but when I first started this, I closed some people. If you're not open and willing to do the work, I don't want to set you up for failure. And I don't want to set me. So I have lots of conversations. We dive into the behavioral profile that I offer for free. And then if the client sees a possibility of value, you get to opt to buy in. So if you're listening and thinking about it, just know I'm not going to try to sell you anything. I'll do a little bit of an assessment. We'll do a little bit of strategy on mindset. And if you see some value there, I'll give you an opportunity to join. But I always, one of our modules is impression of increase, right? Trying to leave everybody we meet. And I teach this to in-home sales reps. Whether you get the job or not, leave that customer with some more information to make a better decision about insurance, about liability, about the things. And so when I meet with somebody, I'm just trying to give you some value. So if you're feeling called to reach out to me and have a conversation, I promise you, I will give you some value in that 45-minute to an hour session.
I could tell that already. The value you provide here in 25 minutes has been amazing. So before we close out, and we're kind of close to the end of our time here, but before we close out, is there anything that you haven't had a chance to share today that you wanted to be sure to share?
Yeah, let me do this. I want to share a free takeaway to add some more value for listeners. So modules 1 through 8 are all about the process, and it does take some work, some daily work. But one of the supporting modules is about how do you show up, and it takes time to reprogram your behavior. But with awareness in moments, we can choose to show up differently. And I actually it's a mathematical equation to stay in control in any situation, and it's E plus R equals O. And I actually learned this from Jack Canfield. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Chicken Soup for Soul author, but I actually mentored, after Bob Proctor passed away, I reached out and I started working with Jack, and I actually got the opportunity to run a couple of retreats with Jack Canfield. But this is the biggest takeaway I got from Jack. So the E stands for the events in life. I spent 40 years of my life trying to control events that we can't control. I don't control the economy. I don't control other people. I don't control the weather, right? These are the events in life that happen. And so E plus R equals R is an awareness that the events are going to happen. The R is either the reaction or the response. And that creates the O, the outcome. And so people that I work with, every single one, in fact, 2 of them have it tattooed on them, you guys. That's how impactful E plus R equals O has been. But it's in every moment, I have a choice to either react or to pause and respond. And if I respond, I don't control the event, but I get to control how that event affects me and the outcome I create. Losing a key employee, that's an event. Are you going to stew on it and go sue them and a bunch of negative energy and drag out 6 months? Or are you going to respond and move on and replace them? Traffic, road rage. I'm the fighter of road rage. It doesn't do any good. Here in Salt Lake City, over the last year, we've got a couple young fathers get killed because of road rage. That's the worst thing in the world. If somebody cuts me off, I just assume they've got an emergency that's more important than them being safe, and let it go. Let it go. That was the event. I respond by telling myself whatever I need to keep me from, that doesn't affect me. It's not something I have control over. So I guess that was one thing I want to add is E plus R equals O.
Good stuff. Thank you so much. Well, before we close out, I want to ask if you're willing to participate in something we call our rapid fire questions. These are 7 questions. We ask different guests different questions. You have no idea what we're going to ask. What's your response? Are you willing to try rapid fire questions?
I'm squirming.
Okay.
No, I'm good. Let's bring it on.
Let's do it. Ryan, I'll let you ask the first one.
All right. Question number 1. What is a product or service you've acquired recently that was kind of a disruption in your life?
Product or a service?
Something that was a game changer for you.
EOS, the operating system EOS. It had been in my awareness for a while as a mindset coach, but we hired a coach and went to work. And anybody listening, like CCN has really good practices on how to sell, how to run, but EOS to me is a game changer for business. It helps you build a true accountability chart, build level 10 meetings that will move the needle on your business, and it will disrupt. I'm a small company. Bigger companies, we see leadership teams get changed up, but it's all good change. So yeah, EOS.
Question number 2, coffee, energy drink, or neither to help you power through a long day?
I use my affirmations, man. Yeah, I do like coffee. I don't do it daily because I don't like having addiction to caffeine, but I do love a good cup of coffee and a sunrise. That's my favorite.
There you go.
Have you tried mushroom coffee?
Yes, I have tried it. I prefer traditional coffee.
I hated it when I tried it. I thought it tasted terrible.
I think it could be worse. I can stomach it.
Yeah.
I kind of seriously thought about trying the monkey poop coffee when I tried the mushroom coffee because I thought that can't be any worse.
Is that a thing?
Oh, it is. Yeah. So,
oh my gosh.
These monkeys eat the coffee pods and then they poop, and as they collect the poop and they make coffee out of the monkey poop.
I'm out.
It can't be worse than mushrooms.
Oh boy. All right. Question number 3. What is a mindset trap that stymied business owners?
I'm just going to say scarcity mindset. The scarcity mindset. It's in home improvement specifically, because that's where I work. That's the number one thing I see hold people back is just scarcity. They can't see the abundance, whether it be time, people, money. It's a scarcity mindset.
It's interesting. So I've been debating whether to share this. You had mentioned that you'd lost your own mother to dementia. Well, my mother is advanced in years, but we're starting to deal with it. And she grew up toward the end of the Depression. I mean, she heard a lot of Depression stories. And so I'm going through her house and she's like, "Oh, Todd, I need some more of those crackers I like, and I need some more of this." And Bob, you got 5 boxes right now. She is literally still using toilet paper that she had stored up during COVID. And so that scarcity mindset is a real thing. And you're right. That stuff is impacted by things from our childhood so often.
Yeah. It's generation. My grandparents were Great Depression, and they had a storage thing, just like you say. My grandma had 5 to 10 of everything. And if they got below 5, they were freaking out. And then that rolled over to my mom. And I find myself, I actually like to have 2 of everything. I do. I don't want to go to my cabinet and be out of it, but that is additional programming that comes into play. And I'm sorry to hear about your mom. I know.
Yeah,
that's the most challenging thing, is to have a beautiful person you love and care about. We're talking about mindset today. My mom was 63 when we lost her. She was perfectly healthy, man. No, perfect heart, perfect health. And she just lost her mind. And that, to me, when I talk about my mindset, that was one of the most challenging things that I've ever dealt with. So my heart goes out to you. It's so hard when they can't remember things and the frustration that creates in them. It's definitely a challenge.
It's tough to watch. That's for sure. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Question number 4. If you could instantly master any skill, what skill would you choose to master?
Playing the guitar, actually. I don't know. I have 4 adult children that are musicians, and my bonus daughter, I got her playing the guitar, and I've been taking lessons for 10 years, you guys, and I just can't master that. I just want to be able to play and sing and make some good music. So that's what I would pick.
I'm with you there. I've gone through phases where I've bought a guitar and tried to learn how to play it, and just doesn't jive with me real well. So,
well, I'm left-handed, and my guitar teacher's become a good friend. I actually, when I was going through my challenges, I had an office next to him, so I sat and listened to him having these impact on these kids, because the self-confidence a young kid gets when they can play an instrument is amazing.
Yeah.
But long story short, he's like, "Shawn, don't get a left-handed guitar. Let's just do a right-handed." So after 10 years of me doing a right-handed, he's like, "I think we probably should have had you do a left-handed, because it's something with my coordination with my right hand."
I don't know that I would trust them as a teacher.
Right?
All right. Next question. Favorite movie that you'd be willing to watch numerous times?
Probably Tombstone. The Wyatt Earp with Val Kilmer. I'm your Huckleberry. I love that movie. I'm the person, I only watch movies once. And again, not to rabbit hole on mindset, but when I started with Jack Canfield, he talked about, less TV, and this is like a decade ago. So I don't watch much TV unless it's a documentary or something that I'm going to gain some value from. But I could watch some Tombstone over and over.
Next question. What is a memorable or a favorite smell from your childhood?
Oh, Folgers coffee in my grandma and grandpa's house. Waking up to the smell of Folgers. I don't know. I loved waking up to that smell. I'd stay with them.
Final question. We'll kind of wrap up here with a little bit more of a serious question. What do you want to be remembered for at the end of your days?
I want to be remembered for the impact I've had on people's lives. My mentor, Bob Proctor, when he passed away a couple of years ago, I went to his YouTube channel and they had a memorial up, and the work I do has impact. Like, I don't just help people in their business. Like I shared, I help people walk through death and divorce and challenge. And when I was looking at Bob's page and I was just watching the comments and the comments and the comments, I just literally stared at that screen and said, that's what I want. I want to have had a big enough ripple effect of impact with my work that when my time here is done, I've left a lasting impression of, and again, you mentioned earlier, so my focus with people in those 3 areas is I want to help people create freedom, abundance, fun, and love. And that's what I want to be remembered for.
Doesn't get any better than that. Good answer. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I have to reveal that we all got in our challenge words. I actually didn't say that at the beginning of the show, but most of our guests or most of our audience, I think, is familiar with our challenge word thing that we do. So we each had a word we were challenged to work into the conversation. We all got them in. Shawn, your word was?
Squirm.
Squirm. Did a good job. Ryan, you had?
Disruption.
Worked it in there well. And I had migration. I thought I was going to have to use migratory, but I used migration as I was supposed to. So good stuff. So kudos to everybody. Well, Shawn, thank you again for your time today. For those, remind us again, for those who want to learn more, want to get in touch with you, what are great ways for them to do that? And I know you've got a strong presence on LinkedIn, so I'll give a shout out to that also.
Yes, you can find me on any social media, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. And it's interesting. I'm the Universal Mindset Disruptor, but I'm the only Shawn Feurer. Feuer is a very rare last name. And so if you look for Shawn Feurer online, you're only going to find me. I've done a lot of research trying to find another Shawn Feurer, and I haven't found one yet. So there's a challenge. If you find another Shawn Feurer, let me know. But if you go to Google and type in my name, you'll pull up all of my information from my website to my social medias. But if you want to get direct, just send an email to coach@ShawnFeurer.com.
Cool. And some people have to spell either their first or the last name, but you gotta spell both of them for everybody.
Why are there 3 ways to spell Shawn and Feurer? I tell you, growing up, I have a paradigm about my last name. It got butchered over the intercom in middle school so many times.
Oh, I can't imagine.
I have so many goofy nicknames from my high school friends.
Well, good stuff. Well, thank you again for joining us. This has been a great conversation. I know our audience is going to enjoy it. So thank you, Shawn.
Well, can I? And again, I am the gratitude guy with Mindset, but I just want to say thanks to you guys for allowing me to speak on your platform. Again, my goal is to have that impact, and hopefully somebody listening today had some impact. And thanks for making it fun. You're giving me some ideas for my podcast. I love the questions. I love the words. It adds a little bit of fun to the conversation too. So thanks for that.
We try. Thank you. And thank you to our audience for tuning into this episode of Construction Disruption with Mindshift coach Shawn Feurer. Please watch for future episodes of our podcast. We always have great guests. Don't forget to leave a review or give us a thumbs up, whatever that might be. Until the next time we're together, though, keep on disrupting, keep on challenging the world around you to make things better and to do things in better ways. And don't forget, most of all, to have a positive impact on everyone you encounter. Make them smile. Encourage them. Simple yet powerful things you can do to change the lives of others. So God bless and take care. This is Isaiah Industries signing off until the next episode of Construction Disruption.
This podcast is produced by Isaiah Industries, manufacturer of specialty metal roofing and other building products.